bone, steel, metal, wood, blood, wire, leaves, rags. Anything my hands can find, really. Anything that's been abandoned or broken that my palms can absolve of obscurity, I use. I choose, or maybe it chooses me. Maybe these things sing to me from the hearts of ditches, from dirt mounds, from pockets of the earth most people's eyes pass over. Maybe they call out to me to take them and reshape them and give them the guidance of my hands, the artistry of the arteries that line the sum of my body. See, mine is a life of construction, of manipulating things born rigid, of fusing new breath inside their lungs, of channeling life into all that I handle, of discovering and uncovering what hovers just beyond the wreckage. Funny, there are some in this world who call all that I make is art. There are others who view it as nothing more than madness. Me, I simply see it as what I was partially sent here for. Why, God Almighty gave me this spirit as well as the passion of these poems.
Artists are resourceful creatures because they have to be. I think that people who tend to come from marginalized communities, backgrounds, and cultures are more often than not the most resourceful people on the face of the planet. Thornton was born in 1928 in your home state, actually, in Alabama, a little place called Emile, Alabama. Are you familiar with it at all? Okay. He was born unto sharecroppers and spent the vast majority of his life in rural settings where there wasn't an abundance of money. As he got older, he started making these assemblages, which he called things, which I love. We all make things. But it wasn't until he met a man named William Arnett in the late 80s that his perspective began to shift. William Arnett was an art collector, and he was really interested in traveling through rural areas and discovering black artists for his collection. The two ended up forming a lifelong friendship that lasted until January of this year when Thornton passed away. And what's funny is that William was interested in buying a piece from Thornton. And he's like, well, how much would you give me for this? It's a massive piece of art. And Thornton's like, $20. He's like, no, I cannot do that. I have to give you more. He's like, how about 30? It's like, I'm going to give you no less than $400. So the advent of William Arnett shifted Thornton's perspective from just seeing what he was making from things to actual pieces of art, and then from pieces of art to pieces of art that A, had something to say, and B, value. One day the phone rang, and William and Thornton got a phone call from 60 Minutes, and they wanted to do a piece on the two of them. And it didn't work out exactly how they intended. The story basically projected Thornton as this super ignorant rural black man who was basically being used for the gimmick in the story through William Arnett, as well as the other artists that William was working with. As a matter of fact, another artist that he was helping went on camera for the interview and was talking about how William was taking advantage of her. They ran into each other at the premiere of the art show, and she apologized to him. She's like, 60 Minutes, they kicked me a couple of dollars. I said this, I apologize. So pretty much overnight, all of the momentum that the two had established was gone. Typically, if we look at artists who, again, make outside art, who come from more mainstream or commercial backgrounds and families, we are aware of those people, maybe their artworks, but also the people, because we can imagine ourselves having a relationship with them. If you kind of reverse that a little bit and you look at people who make the same kind of provocative work, who maybe look a little bit different or don't have the same education, they're not often greeted with that same response. Often that brings out the prejudices and biases that we all have, from the purist perspective of, no, if you're going to do art, you should go to school and you should work really hard and you should make the right connections, you should do it this way. There's a writer who had a significant amount of pull in the art community who kind of returned to Thornton's artwork. And he changed his perspective on it. He's like, no, this actually does have great social commentary, it has value, it's worth revisiting. Fast forward a couple more years, he reversed course. And he echoed exactly the same things that people were saying before. No, this is completely overblown. You know, it's a really good gimmick, but there's nothing really here. There are a couple of things that impact culture. One being exposure, and there's another one, starts with an M, money, right? So if you have an artist from Emile, Alabama, which a lot of people have never heard of, even people who are from Alabama, right? Who has a third grade education, no working knowledge of art history. I don't think he'd ever been into a museum until his work was being shown in one, being called the next Picasso. What do you think that does to Picasso's paintings that sell? Well, even if we just think of birds not learning to fly, there's a natural ceiling of how far they can travel, right? You don't have the opportunity to really explore the sky as you are meant to do, right? I think that very much is the case with Thornton. For sheer circumstances that really had nothing to do with him, his trajectory and reach didn't have the chance to get a fair shake. I think to a certain degree it was kind of taken away from him. Which brings us to the next thing I want to talk about, which is loss. So Thornton lost his wife in 2005. And I don't think he ever really recovered as I don't think anybody ever recovers from a loss like that. But if we look at his work from the early 2000s, specifically 2005 and on, I think you can see a shift in the tone of it. While his work always dealt with social issues, with poverty, our American definition of beauty. If we go back to 2005, you are very much in the midst of George W. Bush's administration, right? Post 9/11 America, Hurricane Katrina, the war on terror, right? All things that affect the country as a whole. But again, narrowing the focus a little bit more, things that largely affect people who come from marginalized backgrounds. They're the ones who are actively recruited to fight these wars. These are the people who can't get access. You know, we go back to the whole resourcefulness and survival element. They can't get what they need, you know, which is the aftermath of Katrina. And I think that is very much what Thornton came from. So I think it really struck a sensitive element for him. I want to do one more poem, which deals with loss. So typically when I do long sets in front of people, I will throw this one in, and this is an ode to my cousin who passed in December of 2014. I thought that it would be a good gesture to kind of do that for Thornton, since he passed at the tail end of January of this year. So this is called an invocation. Oh God, bend low your ear. Acknowledge this humble servant's simple prayer. Cover him in light and strength, that his plea may reach the far corners of this creation that comprises you. May all that is, was, shall, and could have been take heed and hear this. We beseech you, lend your grace in this most desperate hour. We who have shed a litany of tears for friends and family taken both in their time and far too soon for you to atone for. Taken before justice, before all sense and reason, before their flames had flourished, and those too licked by fire and so succumbed to its embrace. We, weavers pulling each strand of madness from the skin, holding the mirror up to the ugly so it may see itself and wonder at its ignorance. We, streams of unconscious rambling. We, collapsed veins and broken capillaries. We who have only found our power at the bottoms of bottles. We who are brave enough to face our demons in darkness. Sober now, oh God, may joy fill the parts of our arteries that we aren't even aware of, that we don't know that we neglect.
May we find our way inching closer to forgiveness for no one other than ourselves, for nothing else other than the sanctity and serenity of our souls. May you make instruments out of us and let our mournful voices and hypnotic drones fill the air. May you lay peace upon those of us too afraid to love, to let anyone see our lights, and those of us unafraid to love everything in sight. Oh God, give us the starshine that we may outbrave our fear. We, givers of breath to the struggle, we, fist shakers, warrior women, hope mongers, we, owners of hearts that have nearly been beaten but are still beating, we, owners of bodies growing closer to the grave but are still living and upright. Oh God, may you make sorcerers and summoners out of us so that we can transform our traumas into triumphs we've survived, so that we may usher almighty calm into the chaos we carry. Oh God, give us the hours that occupy each day to commit our lives to purpose, to commit our love and comprehension to those who do not look, worship, live, date, vote, or pray like us. May we understand the power the I love yous we both say and mean contain. May our tongues be limber and willing enough to let loose those words to those who need them the most, those who have faced hours, weeks, months, and more without encountering them. Oh God, give us this day that we may become the voices we were always meant to be. Oh God, give us this day that we may be more of ourselves than we have ever been. Oh God, give us this day that we may remember who we breathe for. Grant us the courage to speak what must not be left unspoken, while we still have the lungs to carry it, while we still have the power to sing our prayers into hymns, while we are still standing above this earth before we eventually dwell within it. Oh God, bend low your ear so the music of my words may find you. Thank you.